The 6:42 to downtown was packed, as usual. Doors hissed open, and I stepped in slow. Winter in Detroit makes bones stiff. The cold moves through boots and into joints like it's looking for someplace to settle. I gripped my cane tighter, nodding to the conductor as I boarded. The platform had been slick. I'd waited in the disabled line with the others, some older, some just tired. The aisle was narrow. My bad leg dragged a little behind, still stiff from the cold. My boots, old army issue, tapped a steady beat against the steel floor. Most folks didn't look. A few leaned sideways, pretending not to see. One empty seat, window side, a blessing. I moved toward it slowly, cautious with the sway of the car. That's when he slipped in. Young man, trim suit, clean coat, leather shoes that never saw mud. He moved quick, cutting across the aisle like he owned it, and dropped into the seat I'd been approaching. Didn't look up. Should have moved faster, Grandpa, he muttered, eyes already on his phone. He had a smirk that didn't match his tie, smug, like he enjoyed being watched. I stopped, one hand still on the pole. My back ached, my knee throbbed. The seat had been mine by any decent measure, but decency doesn't ride the morning train much these days. Just across the row, a small boy giggled, maybe 6 or 7. Too much energy for this hour. He was staring at my boots. His mother sat beside him, head down, thumbs dancing across a glowing screen. She didn't glance up. Old shoes for an old man, the boy said, just loud enough for me to hear. Then he leaned forward and spit, a small, wet splatter on the toe of my right boot. The mother didn't notice, or didn't care. I looked at the spot. Just sat there, wet and shining under the fluorescent light. Around us, no one spoke. A few eyes flicked up, then down. A caw, a rustle of a newspaper. I kept standing. My hand squeezed the pole until my knuckles turned white. Not from rage. Not yet. Just trying to stay upright. I enlisted in the Army in 1978. Supply Corps. Logistics. Not the job you dream about when you're young, but I was never one for dreams. I was good with systems. Knew how to make sense out of chaos. Trucks, fuel, crates, food. It all came through us before it went anywhere else. My name's Captain Gerald Knox, retired. 30 years in uniform. I wore every rank from private to officer. Never asked for more than what was earned. That's the difference, I've found, between those who serve and those who wear the look of service like it's a costume. I worked hard, moved up, became the one people called when things didn't move. If a convoy stalled in the wrong desert, if the food rations didn't arrive before the heat did, my phone rang. Then came Iraq. The last tour, Basra, 2007. Our convoy was rerouting through a sector we thought had cooled. We were wrong. The RPG struck our lead Humvee. The sky opened like a furnace. 3 men under my command died before they knew they'd been hit. I remember their names, their birthdays, where they kept their letters. I still do. I remember how the metal sounded against the sand, how the blood soaked into my uniform. My leg caught under the frame of the second vehicle, pinned for 9 minutes before they cut me free. 9 minutes of heat and screaming and smoke. I came home with a limp, the kind that doesn't show right away, but settles over the years. I was lucky. They said that a lot. Lucky to be alive. But luck isn't comfort. It's not sleep. It's not what comes after. My wife tried, but the man who came home wasn't the one who left. She lasted 2 years. Couldn't sleep beside someone who woke up gasping. Couldn't take the quiet or the rage. She left a note on the fridge and never came back. Our son, Daniel, was 16 then. Too angry to understand. Too proud to forgive. He left at 18, didn't look back. Last I heard, he moved south. Georgia, maybe. I haven't heard from him in over 10 years. I got a 1-bedroom near Livernois. Clean enough. Quiet. The walls creak in winter. My pension covers just enough to live. I stretch my prescriptions. The VA clinic gave me a supply last fall. Anti-inflammatories. A salve for nerve pain. But I ration them, make them last. I spend my days walking. Moving helps. Stiffness sets in if I sit too long. I volunteer 3 times a week at the outreach clinic near Grand River. Mostly admin work. Sometimes I help young vets fill out paperwork, or just listen. That's what most of them need. Someone who listens. Twice a week, I deliver groceries to a few seniors who can't leave their apartments. Mostly vets. One was a paratrooper, another a nurse in the Gulf. We talk for a few minutes at the door. I don't go in. Boundaries matter. I ride the train every weekday. It's cheap, reliable, gets me to where I need to be. I know what it feels like to be seen, and what it feels like not to be. Sometimes people thank me when they find out, but most days, I just blend into the background. Just another stiff-backed man in army boots with a cane and an old face. That morning was colder than usual. Ice covered the platform in patches. I waited my turn in the disabled boarding line, watched the sunrise smear itself across the city's haze. I saw Adam Blake arrive. Didn't know his name then, but I knew his type. Clean haircut, smart coat, too much cologne. Stepped out of a black car with tinted windows, adjusted his cufflinks before checking his watch. He didn't hesitate. Walked straight through the line, past an older woman with a walker, and boarded ahead of us all. The door wasn't even fully open when he pushed in. He didn't see me. Or maybe he did. Didn't matter. Inside, he scanned the car, locked eyes on the open seat, and moved. I tried to keep pace. My leg wasn't ready for speed that early. The train jerked slightly as it started to roll. I reached the seat a breath too late. He slipped into it, smiled like he'd won something, and said what he said. Should have moved faster, Grandpa. That's when the boy across from him noticed me. It was the way the kid looked at my boots, like they were wrong, like I was wrong, and the way his mother ignored him when he spat. That part stayed with me. The spit didn't hurt, but the message did. It said, "You don't belong here." And no one disagreed. No one said a word. The train shuddered over the first bridge span, the floor humming beneath my boots. I steadied myself, gripping the overhead bar as we passed Cass Avenue. The pain in my leg climbed higher with each bump, a fire spreading up the side of my thigh, settling into the scar tissue. I focused on the window. Not the boy's laughter, not the silence around me. But silence has weight. It presses in. It shapes you. The mother said nothing. Not to her son. Not to me. She scrolled through her phone like it was more important than the boy she was raising. "He's probably crazy," the boy muttered. I turned slightly, met his eyes. He looked away. Nobody else looked up. The woman closest to me, white coat, expensive purse, shifted slightly in her seat. Not toward me. Away. At the next stop, 3 more people boarded. One was a man with a bandage on his cheek, dressed in a janitor's uniform. He glanced at me, saw the empty space where a seat should have been, and looked away fast, like he'd stumbled into something private. Adam Blake didn't move. He adjusted his collar and smirked at a text on his screen. The train lurched again. I nearly lost my footing. My cane slipped. I caught myself with one hand on the rail. The jolt sent a lance of pain up my hip, sharp and electric. I winced. A gasp slipped through my teeth. That's when she noticed. Dana Fields, sitting 3 rows back, in a navy blue MTA jacket. Dark skin, calm eyes. She watched like someone used to watching. She didn't say anything, just shifted her bag onto her lap and sat up straighter. Dana had served 10 years in the National Guard before becoming a public transit operator. She knew fatigue, knew the signs of pain when someone tried to hide it. She saw how I gripped the rail, saw the boys spit, the way Adam Blake sprawled in the seat like it was his throne. She saw. That made all the difference. Behind her sat a man in a worn gray parka, Lionel Grant, a high school teacher on his way back from dropping off his daughter. He had a good face, eyes that scanned without judgment. He'd seen the moment too. The seat, the muttered insult, the spit. He pulled out his phone, quietly tilted it, began recording. I didn't notice. Not then. I was still focused on the pain, not just in my leg, but in the room. Because that's what it becomes. After a while, the ache changes shape, becomes part of the air, something you breathe in with every silence, every averted eye. When you serve, they call you a hero, a soldier, a protector. But afterward, you're just another man with a limp and a story no one asks about. We passed 4 stops. Nobody moved. Adam crossed his legs, polished leather brushing against worn canvas. I watched a fleck of dust transfer from my boot to his cuff. He scowled and brushed it away. It made me want to laugh, but I didn't. The boy fidgeted again, kicking the edge of the seat. He whispered something to his mother. She hushed him with one hand, never lifting her eyes. A woman with an infant strapped to her chest boarded at the next station. She stood near the front, rocking side to side. Nobody offered her a seat either. That's the thing about injustice. It spreads, like a leak, like mold. Once one person's dignity is dismissed, others follow. No one wants to be the one who stands alone. But 2 people already had. Dana and Lionel. Their silence was different, not complacent. It was waiting, and that changed everything. The train rolled on, swaying slightly as it curved around the industrial zone near Milwaukee Junction. The sky outside had brightened. Brittle sunlight stretched across rooftops and empty billboards. Inside, The lights buzzed faintly above the hush of passengers too polite or too distracted to intervene. I adjusted my grip again. My cane had slipped slightly from the last jolt. The pressure in my hip now pulsed steady with each breath. I'd stood for 23 minutes. Nobody moved. Dana shifted again in her seat, watching closely. She leaned forward now, her bag hugged to her chest. Her jacket had a transit operator badge clipped to the collar. She didn't raise her voice, didn't point fingers. Instead, she reached up and pressed the conductor intercom. A quiet chime echoed down the car. No one noticed, except Adam Blake. He looked up briefly, annoyed, then back to his phone. Behind Dana, Lionel kept his phone steady. The video captured everything: Adam sliding into the seat, my limp, the spit, the silence. It also captured the small but crucial shifts: the twitch of Dana's hand, the conductor's voice announcing the next stop, the subtle stillness spreading like a question no one wanted to answer. Then came the next movement. From the back of the train car, a man stood. Older, winter coat pulled snug against his frame. He walked with a cautious steadiness, using the seatbacks for support. His face was lean, marked by lines that spoke of years rather than age. He stopped near me. I didn't recognize him. He studied my face a moment. His eyes softened. "I think I know you," he said, his voice gravel low. I blinked, confused, but something in his tone, not recognition, but memory, made me pause. He reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a cracked leather wallet, thumbed through a few slips of paper. Then a photo. It was grainy, old, a print from the early 2000s. It showed a young man, barely more than 20, half-conscious in the back of a dusty Humvee. Another man held his hand, gripped it like it was the only thing holding him in the world. Blood soaked the corner of his uniform. The light in the photo was stark and yellow. "I was the one on the stretcher," the man said. "You were holding my hand." I stared. Memory returned like a wave. Sudden, cold. Basra, the convoy, the blast. One of our trucks had caught fire. I'd pulled 3 men from it. One was a medic, another a kid from Alabama. The third, I hadn't known his name, just that he was bleeding badly and calling for his mother. "You're Dr. McCarthy," I said, the name surfacing from some old after-action report. He smiled. "Leon McCarthy," he nodded. "Trauma surgeon now, director of Detroit Medical. But once, I was Private McCarthy, and you were the man who carried me out." He turned toward the car, then, away from me, and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "This man standing here, he saved my life in Iraq, carried me nearly half a mile through enemy fire, got shrapnel in his leg for it. That limp, he earned it." The train quieted even more, like the air had been sucked out. Adam looked up again, this time, not annoyed, just confused. The mother finally put her phone down. Her eyes darted between me and McCarthy. The boy stared at the floor. Dana stood. So did Lionel. "Sir," Dana said gently, "please, take my seat." I hesitated, but then nodded. As I sat, the ache in my joints unwound. Slowly, I leaned my cane against the rail. Exhaled. The pain was still there, but the weight was different. Lionel stepped forward, still holding the phone. "Sir," he said, "I recorded what happened. I didn't know who you were, but what I saw wasn't right." He turned the phone so I could see the screen. I caught a glimpse of myself, standing, gripping the rail. The boy spitting. The look on my face. "I've already shared it," Lionel added, "with local veterans groups, with community pages. It's moving fast." McCarthy nodded, then pulled out his phone. He dialed quickly. "This is Dr. Leon McCarthy. I need a media contact at the Free Press," he said. "Now." He walked to the end of the car as the train slowed. The mother stood, pulled her son gently to his feet. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Then, to the boy, "Say it." He looked up at me. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. It didn't fix it, but it was a start. The train rolled into the next station. A fresh gust of wind pushed through the open doors. Outside, the skyline loomed, full of shadows and promise. Inside, the silence had changed. People whispered now, not about me, not exactly, but about what had happened, and who had seen. The train idled at the platform longer than usual. The doors stayed open. Cold air swept through the car in sharp bursts. Still, no one moved. McCarthy returned from the far end of the train, phone to his ear, voice calm but firm. "Yes, I'm telling you it's him," he said. "Captain Gerald Knox." "Yes. Bronze Star, Iraq, Basra." He listened, then added, "You'll want this story. Trust me." He ended the call and tucked the phone away, then looked at me. "They're sending a reporter to meet us at the terminal," he said. "Don't worry. You won't have to talk unless you want to." I didn't answer. I was still trying to settle into the moment. still feeling the cold through the seat, the breathless silence that had filled the train like fog. Across from me, Adam Blake sat stiffly now. The color had drained from his face. He tried to keep reading his phone, but the tremor in his hand betrayed him. I watched him glance around, hoping for someone to explain things away, to rescue his pride. No one did. The boy was still quiet, clutching his mother's coat. She kept a hand on his shoulder. Dana had resumed her seat, but she sat straighter now, chin up, hands folded. Her face had softened, not into pity, but something like respect. And Lionel, he was typing, fingers tapping steadily. The post had already gone out. This morning I witnessed a decorated veteran, Captain Gerald Knox, harassed and denied a seat on a packed train. No one spoke until someone did. That man saved lives in Iraq, including Dr. Leon McCarthy, who stepped forward to recognize him. Dignity matters. Service matters. Don't look away. It was spreading fast. My phone buzzed. Once, twice, deep in my coat. I didn't answer. The conductor entered from the rear, a young man in his 20s, clearly breathed. He stood by my row and cleared his throat. "Sir," he said, nervous but respectful, "we've designated a seat for you from now on. Car 3, front left. It'll be marked daily." I didn't speak, just nodded. He swallowed, then looked at Adam Blake. "I'll need you to step out at the next stop." "What?" Adam's voice cracked. "Why?" "Priority seating," the conductor replied evenly. "Effective immediately." Adam opened his mouth again, then shut it. He stood slowly, his body moving like it had never been told no before. He stepped into the aisle and turned toward me. Not to apologize, just to look, like he was trying to understand how everything had turned against him in 10 minutes. I met his eyes, then looked past him. He moved away. At the next stop, McCarthy waited with me near the doors. A small crowd had formed on the platform. News spreads fast when it has weight, when it has meaning. A reporter from Channel 7 held a camera to her chest, waiting polite. Another man held a folded notepad. Neither pushed, they just waited. McCarthy walked with me as I stepped onto the platform. The sun was up now, brighter than it had any right to be. "I want to do this right," he said. "Not just a photo, a civic award, a formal one. You deserve it." "I didn't do anything special," I said. He shook his head. "You did what you always do," he replied. "You stood up." That afternoon, the city issued a state. Captain Gerald Knox would be formally recognized at an upcoming city council meeting, not just for his service overseas, but for his continued work in the community, for mentoring, for groceries delivered, for not disappearing. Dana and Lionel attended. So did McCarthy. So did a few of the passengers from that morning. Faces I only half remembered, but now they stood still and proud. A week later, they awarded me a civic medal. It didn't shine much, but it meant something. They called me by name. They told the story the right way. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something shift inside. Not pride, exactly. Recognition. Not for the medals, not for the uniform, but for the weight I still carry, and the quiet way I chose to carry it. They changed the seat 2 days later. Front left in car 3, just like the conductor promised. A new sign was bolted above it. Not a sticker, not a card, but a plate of brushed steel. Simple words etched deep. Reserved for veterans, honoring service, honoring strength. It wasn't just a gesture, it was a declaration. The first morning I saw it, I stood for a moment before sitting. There was no fanfare, no applause, just the quiet recognition that something had shifted, that maybe, for once, the right story had found its way to the surface. The conductor nodded to me. Dana was already seated across the aisle, sipping coffee from a thermos. Lionel waved as he boarded with his daughter, who now pointed excitedly at the plaque every morning. "Is that him?" she asked once, eyes wide. "Yes," Lionel said. "That's Captain Knox." She smiled and gave me a tiny salute. I returned it, clean, sharp, just once. Word kept spreading. A local high school invited me to speak in their history class. I said no at first. I don't like standing in front of rooms. But Lionel, he teaches there now, asked again, gently. Said it wasn't about speeches, just stories. So I told them about logistics, about the grind of war, about moving pallets in 120-degree heat, about how saving lives sometimes meant knowing how many vests would fit into a Humvee when half the bolts were already rusted through. They listened. They asked real questions. One student stayed behind after class. A girl with a journal full of letters she'd written to a brother she never got to meet, killed outside Fallujah in 2006. I wanted to hear from someone who came back, she said. I nodded. She didn't need advice, just presence. McCarthy kept his promise. A civic ceremony was held in Corktown 2 weeks after the train incident. Press came. So did veterans, families, community leaders. Not to grandstand, just to be part of something right. They gave me a medal, yes. But more than that, they gave me space. That's all I'd ever needed. My story reached further than I imagined. A nurse at the VA recognized me from the clip Lionel had posted. She asked if I'd consider speaking with some of the newer caseworkers, help them understand the quiet signs, the ways pain shows up in posture or silence. I agreed, not because I had solutions, but because sometimes words from someone who's walked the same ground can cut through the rest. Dana and I talk most mornings now. She tells me about her shifts, the long ones, the short ones, the frustrating ones. We swap stories. She still rides the line, still watches closely. Some things don't change. The boy, the one who spit on my boots, I saw him again. Weeks later, he was standing near a veteran cemetery off 7 Mile. It was late fall. The ground was dry, leaves spinning in the wind. He held a small American flag in his hand. Beside him stood his teacher, Lionel. I didn't approach, just watched from across the lawn. The boy planted the flag near a grave, smoothed the grass with one small hand, and stood back. His mother waited nearby. This time, she wasn't looking at her phone. Some stories take time to bend toward something better. Mine did. The outreach clinic where I volunteer started getting more foot traffic. New faces. Old wounds. Same patterns. I help where I can. Sometimes with paperwork. Sometimes just with sitting. That seat on the train stayed empty the few times I missed it. Conductors made sure of that. Sometimes someone tries to sit there, not noticing the sign. But someone always speaks up now. Not just out of duty. Out of respect. Adam Blake, he lost his position at the firm after the story broke. Why? Company said he violated public conduct expectations. He issued a half-hearted apology in a local op-ed. I didn't read it. I don't need apologies that arrive only after consequences. He'll find his way. Or he won't. That's not mine to carry. My son, Daniel, called the night after the story aired on national news. He didn't say much at first, just that he saw me, that he hadn't forgotten everything, that maybe he'd been wrong. He asked if we could talk. I said yes. He flew up the next weekend. We didn't fix everything, not in one visit, but we sat, ate lunch. He asked about the convoy, about the years between, about the boots I still wore every day. I told him the truth, and he stayed. That was enough. Each morning, I still board the 642, car 3, front left. The seat is always empty when I arrive. Sometimes a new rider glances toward it, unsure. But there's the plaque, solid, unmoved, reserved for veterans, honoring service, honoring strength. I sit without fuss, sip coffee from a travel mug Dana gave me, dark roast, no sugar. The conductor greets me by name. Passengers nod. Some smile. Most don't say much, but they see me. That's all I ever wanted. Not honor, not noise, just to be seen. On Mondays, I meet Daniel for lunch. We don't talk about the lost years. We talk about now. He asks questions about my tours, about what leadership really meant. I tell him leadership was carrying weight quietly so others didn't have to. He nods. He's learning. Some mornings, the boy is there too. He rides with his mother now, quietly. He doesn't spit, doesn't laugh. One day he walked over and handed me a folded drawing, a train car, a plaque, a man with a cane. For you, he said. I keep it in my coat pocket. A reminder that change is real. That dignity, once crushed, can be rebuilt, not in grand gestures, but in steady, small reckonings. My boots still carry dust from years ago. I don't clean them too much. They remind me of what held, what mattered. They remind me that time doesn't erase dignity. Only silence does. But silence can be broken. And when it is, when someone finally stands, respect finds its voice. And sometimes, when it echoes, it brings others home too.